Ooh, did I do that right?
Hold
Yay.
on.
Thank you for this last minute random request.
It's no problem. I like just woke up, so I'm not like out of the house. It's not interrupting anything.
Okay, okay. You're in New York right now, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. We're in like Tribeca. It's like such a good neighborhood to be in, especially like for, a nice mellow day. It's like,
And this is the summer of you enjoying before you start your undergrad, right?
theoretically. Yes, I think it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of doing things, but I am like booked this entire summer. So
Uh,
it's like I'm like texting my friends. I'm like, I miss you. They're like, it's been 2 weeks, and I'm like, and we're not going to see each other until August. But yeah, I think that it's going to be a really fun summer regardless. I went to the Met yesterday, which was great. Um,
no, I've been
yeah,
enjoying your stories. And,
oh, that's great. I got this great compliment from this little kid where I was like standing next to one of the statues in the Greek section. And I was like thinking to myself, like, oh, it's so funny. The statues recovered from the area where the Greek side of my family's from. And this little kid, like, walked up to me and was like, "You look like that statue," and then walked away. And but he said it like an
oh,
insult, but I was like, I respect that. Thank you.
no,
Anyway,
because it was
it
Asian
was,
statues.
well, it was like one of the intersectional ones from like the far side of the Turkic Empire. So yeah, like they did have a lot of mixed people, which I think is kind of interesting. So I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
yeah, I see
Oh,
that.
and that's part of maybe something we could discuss a little bit,
Hmm.
because that is interesting. Maybe let me do my little
Yeah.
introduction, because this is something that's been formulating in my head. I'm a mixed race person. Ella is as well. I'll introduce her in a little bit. But I just wanted to talk about race a little bit. Here, I wrote something down. I'm not going to look at the screen. Let me see here. Coming from a mixed race background, it disturbs me how much beliefs in a group's superiority is seemingly running and ruining the world. I think we can agree.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
from my perspective as a Korean and white person, I've seen it both in white people, but also in Asian people. Just is.
Oh yeah.
Of course, white supremacy as a system has been the main driver of harm worldwide, but if we are honest, it has infected everyone.
Hmm.
So that's kind of like my little intro to uh, this talk. And then let me introduce Ella Hughes. Is that all right?
Yeah.
So, with all that said, Ella is the daughter of my wife's good friend, a fellow mixed person, someone I respect a lot. Um, and raising my daughter, there are a few women I look to as great examples. And so, thank you. Like, I mean, you're not my daughter, but I'm proud of you. Every step you've made. Um, and then I also feel there are similarities between you and I. We don't totally fit into all molds. We both grew up in the Bay Area. You're about to start undergrad at a UC school. Like, there's just
Yeah.
little like parallels that I'm also just personally interested in watching how they develop and stuff. So, thank you for joining me in a talk about our experiences with race.
Of course.
How did I do?
That was good. Kind of
Awesome,
turned interesting. I respect it.
awesome, awesome. Um, I don't know. You don't have to, but how do you know me? I mean, I think I've explained
Yeah.
it, or.
Ah, yes. James Everett, originally funny husband to my mother's friends, and now one of my favorite people at every event that we go to. We sit in the corner and talk about tarot and also just like pressing social issues. And I think that that's something that I find very valuable because a lot of people especially in times like these, shy away from discussions of relevant topics because they feel sort of inundated. But I feel like we always have like good discussions about them without being like afraid to bring up hard topics. So also, you're a
Absolutely.
photographer, and that's really cool. And I love your Instagram stories because you always have such good like little pictures on them. I'm like, ooh, yes,
Yay.
the chess time lapse.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, no, and when you mentioned our talks are not too pressure filled, or we don't get, I feel like when I speak about racial issues with mixed people, there's less triggering
Yeah,
going
nobody
on.
considers. It's like our entire existence is already like predicated on the fact that we have to acknowledge race. Like you look at our families and it's like literally like my grandmother, my mother and I like sit in a row and you can watch us whiten. Like it's like you have to acknowledge race to be mixed race. And like if you don't, like
Yeah. No,
yeah.
yeah, you're exactly. And one thing that popped in my head um, a few years back was us being like, at least for me, being half half. It's almost like I know how much race doesn't exist in reality, and I also know how it exists as in the context of our world. So we have unique perspectives. I don't believe mixed race people are superior, but I do have
It's
the instinct that sharing our perspectives might help. I don't, hopefully.
I
Uh,
agree. I think
yeah.
that the thing is that I don't think mixed race people are superior, but I think that whenever you look at like a cultural background, I think it's just as interesting to come from multiple cultural backgrounds and like to see how they combine to form your perspective as it is to come entirely from one. Like I feel like I feel like this is another element of like I feel like I view people who are mixed as like almost a separate like ethnic group within America especially because it's like you if you're mixed in America, then you have like inherently like twice as many cultural influences plus the Americanism, which I feel like casts a tint on all of your perspective of how you view your culture. And so it's like race doesn't like well racial classification is just like it totally falls short the moment that you bring it to mixed race people because it's like I am white racially. I am white. I am white passing. That is, how you would view me. But it's also like yeah, I'm also Chinese. And so it's like if you threw me into a room and expected me to only engage in the way you expected of a white person, I wouldn't do that. And so I feel like that's kind of what I think is interesting about being mixed in America because you are just a wild card. Like, there's no way of getting around the fact that you kind of dismantle some of the systems that are expected that you'll participate in. But I do know plenty of people who like play into them and are like, yeah, I just act as if I'm entirely Japanese or entirely white or entirely X, Y, or Z because it's easier. But yeah, there's a lot of I think power in it, and a lot of like weirdly a lot of like responsibility almost, and like how you engage and portray your culture. But anyway, yeah, that's my
Yeah.
take.
Oh my God. I love it. You already brought up my first question, which was in terms of race, how do you identify? Right? And it sounds like you do something similar where I am white,
Mm-hmm.
period. And
Mm-hmm.
then in the same conversation, I am Korean, period. And I also it's only recently that I've started expressing it that way, and there's a part of it that's a little trying to be subversive because I also feel white people may, even if it's just subconsciously, don't believe I'm white enough. And I believe the other side too, and this might just be my self-consciousness, but I believe sometimes Korean people may not think I'm totally Korean enough, right?
I think
Um,
that's so universal for mixed people. Like I don't think I've ever met a single mixed person who's been like, yeah, I just totally feel accepted by both sides of my ancestry. Like that's like that never happens. Like my,
mm,
my grandma said to me one time, she was like, I forget sometimes that you're also Chinese. I'm like, you're literally my grandmother, but okay.
Do
Also
you
has
speak it at all? Do you speak the language at all?
I don't, because also my grandmother isn't Han, she's Teachu. So any classes they teach in school don't teach the dialect that she speaks. And
Uh,
so it's like she's lost a lot of her language, so she can't teach me, but I also can't learn it in school. And it's like a dying language. So it's kind of like I don't really have that connection on that side, which is interesting because I do speak a little bit of Greek on my other side of the family, my father's side. So it's
ah,
like it's interesting because it's like I think it is also just a level of language accessibility and like respect, because I think also within Chinese culture, like speaking like country dialects is considered like really classless, and like kind of inferior. And so the fact that she is not only an ethnic minority, which already makes her a target, but then spoke a dialect that wasn't mainstream and wasn't, you know, like Han, like Mandarin or Cantonese, I think really made it difficult for her. Because she
ah,
always wanted me to take Mandarin when I was younger, even though she didn't speak it, which I think is kind of interesting. Because she was like, oh, well, Mandarin's the like classy Chinese language, kind of a thing. Which
wow.
obviously I don't agree with. But so yeah, now I just don't speak any Teacher, which is
Oh,
kind of
we get into class issues
ding ding.
within particular ethnic groups or countries and whatnot. Very
Spanish
interesting.
caste system? Who said that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, what's interesting is when my mom was raising us, she was learning English. And so I don't know if this story is true, but I believe it is. Like, we would watch Sesame Street together or all these shows while me and my sister were growing up. And my mom was learning with us a little bit. Also, we were not surrounded with many Koreans, so there just wasn't the opportunity for her to speak it around us or for us to learn it. Um, yeah, so that's a little bit of something that got sparked in me. So yeah, so we talked a little bit about identity. Um, you personally said you're white passing, and that's a big subject for
Mhm.
us. What is white passing? Uh,
Mhm.
all of that. So my question was, what do you think the world identifies you as?
White, like straight
What?
up. And it's really interesting because actually, because of my hair, which you can't really tell right now because I don't have it styled, but my hair is very wavy. And I think that because of that and like the darkness of my eyes and like the way my eyebrows are set in my face, people read me as like Near Eastern or Middle Eastern more often than they read me as Asian, because my father's genes kind of prevail in all of my coloring. And so it's really interesting because it's like this is a weird story from my childhood, but there's this woman, right? And she was like, "Can you take a picture of me in front of this tree?" I was like 13, because it was like I don't know, it was like fall and it was beautiful or whatever. But the point is, I take a picture from in front of this tree, and I hand her back her camera, and she just goes, "Are you Turkish?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a quarter Greek though." And she goes, "That explains it," and just like walks away, and I'm like, "What?" And it's like I feel like people instantly classify me as either white or like vaguely ethnic because I have like a little bit of ethnic ambiguity. But yeah, also Latina people often think that I'm Latina because I speak a little bit of Spanish, and so they look at me and they're like, "You're ethnically ambiguous and you speak like a tiny bit of Spanish, so you must be Latina," which like I'm honored, but I'm not. But I think it's funny because I also had a kid in class once just turn to me and I mentioned something about being Chinese. Like it was around Lunar New Year, and I was like, oh yeah, we're doing Lunar New Year at my grandma's. And he was like, wow, I forgot that you're Asian. You're like way too pretty to be Chinese. And I was like, oh,
Ooh,
oh,
you
interesting.
little punk.
It was bad. That also is an interesting question of race because that person in particular, I've noticed, has a lot of like anti-Asian racism. He's black and he only dates white girls. And there's like this level of like, what are the racial dynamics that we don't even realize are factoring into like how we control our entire lives?
Yeah.
And I go to school where there's like a lot of mixed kids, but they're all Asian, and then it's like mostly white, and so it really messes with the dynamics of our school, like who's passing and who's not. Like if you are white passing, if they people look at you and if they're white, can't tell that you're Asian, because Asian people can always tell if somebody else is Asian. Like I feel like there's something like you can be like an ape and people will look at you and be like, yeah, I can tell. But if white people can't tell that you're not white, then you're like inherently elevated to that like white social class, which is really interesting to me. But yeah, I think people see me as white or ambiguous.
For me, I feel like a lot of people, maybe white people specifically, may be a little confused, but don't bring it up. And then there was a couple times in my life where someone said, "Are you Italian? Are you from Spain?" Right?
They always assume you're like, they're like, there's
No,
something
no,
happening. You're
and
like,
and it's fine. And you know what? And this brings up something too. Like earlier, we were talking about like for does my Asian do Asian people regard me as Asian enough? And I remember once I was in I did CrossFit a few years back, and there was an Asian group of CrossFitters at that gym, and they were all going to go to this, what is it, Tough Mudder or something, one of those kind of workout
yeah.
things. And I remember one of the coaches, who actually was half Chinese, half Vietnamese, he said, Jane, he invited me into that group and said, hey, you want to be part of our Asian group that's going to go? And I didn't say it at the time and I didn't have words for it, but it felt so good
I have a story about
for
that.
someone to invite me in something that felt exclusively Asian, but you're hearing what I'm saying, right?
100%. I have a story
Um,
exactly like that actually when you're done.
and so that's just something that got sparked where I was like, oh, how sweet, you know? I'm
Yeah.
always I'm always sort of
You didn't
navigating
know where to
this
go. Yeah.
in a weird way. So, anyways, no,
Yeah.
that's good. You know, here's a question. Has your racial identity evolved over time? If so, how so?
I think definitely it has because I'll end on a story kind of like the one that you had, but I think whenever I was really little, I always just like saw myself as Chinese, like Chinese and Greek. And it's like I have two white grandfathers, which I mean, like that's a whole nother question. Like Chinese grandmother, white grandfather, met abroad. Chinese women weren't allowed to have citizenship in Australia at the time. Gee, I wonder, I wonder what if that could have factored into the marriage. But anyway, the point is, um, I have like two white grandfathers, but I never saw that as part of my ethnic identity because I think that there was a part of me that just saw America as white, which I think is like it's flawed, but also that childhood perception is, I think, a really kind of key distillation of what America conveys itself as. So I was like, oh, my grandfathers are just American. Like they don't whatever's happening there. Like, and I think that that's something that like the older I got, the more that I realized how wrong that was. I'm like, no, 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 no. My grandfathers are both Midwestern from sundown towns. Like that is the background there. And there are some like American things that are very like, like American there. Like my grandfather loves making pie and he always makes it with Crisco. Like that's very American. But I think that I always saw myself as Chinese and Greek because those were the identities of mine that I had that I noticed were like unique in their combination and unique in how we were treated in different spaces. So I think that that was that. And then when I got older, because I didn't always get along with my grandmother, on my mother's side, I always just saw myself as Greek. Because I'm like, well, I look Greek. I'm closer to the Greek side of my family. I speak more Greek. I'm just Greek. Um,
Mhm.
and then the more I got into Greek spaces, the more that I realized that I'm like, oh, I'm like not only Greek American, but I'm like a weird version of Greek American where it's like we're Greek American and my family is from like the mountains. So like there's like very little in common with a lot of other Greek Americans. And I think that I don't know. I got kind of older and older, and I've been leaning more into my like Asian ancestry recently. I think because I got to this point where I was like, I don't really care if I'm white passing. Like I still love the parts of Chinese culture that like my family engages in. But also, I had a story. So I was at the American Civil Liberties Union summer program. So I was at the ACLU Institute or whatever, and we had a time period for like breakout groups. And the breakout groups were based on like marginalized groups that you could be a part of. There's also one that was just like for feminists. There's this whole like thing. But I was gonna go to the queer student group because I was like, well, that's the one that I have. I'm like, that's the group that I belong in. And then I had a friend of mine who's half Japanese, half German, and she was like, hey, why don't you just come to the Asian Student Union with me? And I was like, can I go to the Asian Student Union? Like, I don't experience racism on the basis of being Chinese. Like, people don't discriminate towards. And she's like, yeah, but you are Chinese. And she just kind of looked at me like, bruh, what are you even saying? Like, if you are Chinese, you come to the Asian student group. I don't understand what you're saying. And that moment where she was just like, yeah, your engagement with the culture and the fact that you are Chinese means that you belong here, and that's it. Like, people who are arguing otherwise just don't know what they're talking about. And I was like, oh, that's actually like really sweet. And then I
Yeah.
went, and there were several other kids like me who were like a quarter Chinese, but like had like a lot of interaction with their Chinese background, or like there was this one kid who was like a quarter Filipino, a quarter Chinese, and then like half white. And we're just talking about like what our family backgrounds were and like how we uniquely experience kind of a different version of like what racial identity is based off of like our breakdowns and what spaces we feel like we belong in. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, so I feel like I just it's like I really leaned into it, and then I was like, oh, this isn't for me because I don't look like Chinese enough. And then I think I kind of am leaning back in now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. And
what
oh
about you?
no, I just lost a little. Definite. I'm impressed with you because I feel like earlier on in your life, it sounds like you've thought about these issues. You've identified with the multiple sides. At this age, I wasn't so politically engaged
I think it
uh,
might be the times too.
as you are. I'm sorry?
I think it might be the times as well.
Mm,
Like
mm,
I feel like I grew up during like the Obama administration is generally how I think about it. And I think that during the Obama administration where there was a lot of talk about increasing diversity within like public service, it kind of just makes you question like what diversity is. And
mm.
so I think that I was like it's weird. I never considered myself like I don't know, like part of like what would be qualified as DEI until I got a lot older. Um, but I don't know. I think that like now it's like I indisputably consider myself like I am the DEI nightmare. I kind of call myself sometimes because I'm like on all the boards at school and stuff, and it's like yeah, I'm mixed race and I'm queer. Like oh no, I'm intersectional. Ooh, but I think that I considered it because of the time I grew up in, and I wouldn't have ever considered it if I hadn't been alive now. I feel
Uh,
like.
yeah, no, I take it. A little progress on that. What was the one thing I was going to say? You've seen my ancestor altar. You've kind of made fun of me about it and
I
stuff.
love your ancestral part.
um, but I just want to say, in regards to that, uh, there's something about connecting to the past and my different backgrounds where at one point, like in questioning whether we can claim being Asian or claim it, right? One thing, a question came up. Grandfather, what would he say to me? Would he not, would he say I'm not Asian enough? Or do I represent him in a way where he would want me to be proud of it and claim it? And I'm leaning towards he would want me to claim it. I, in the future, I want them to claim everything they are, whoever follows me. So interesting stuff. Um, I feel like we've kind of gone through most of the stuff. How much different racial communities embrace you? I don't know. Maybe we've talked about that. Oh, this is the one. What do you wish non-mixed people knew about race?
That it's entirely a construct, and not just in like a people say like race is a construct like way. Like I genuinely mean like the moment you start considering it with any sort of racial mixing, it totally falls apart, like entirely. And then you look at like, well, what are the major racial groups? We think of people as being like Asian, white, black, what, like Native American. Like those are our four racial groups. But then it's like, okay, well, there's a big difference between being Far East Asian and being like Southeast Asian. And also like, okay, what if I'm like half Far East Asian and then I have like a black parent. And so that way, like I know plenty of people who are like mixed, and it's like they're like, yeah, everyone reads me as black because they just look at me and they're like, okay, hair texture, skin, you're black, and then they're like, I'm actually half Chinese, but like no one reads that because it's like, what is race once you actually get into it? It's like an antiquated classification for ethnic groups that was made to establish superiority complexes. Like it doesn't align with the actual ethnic experience of like how people exist. And so I feel like when I look at it, it's like, well, what am I? I'm Chinese Greek American. That's how I view myself. But not just that, I'm Chinese Malay Greek American because my grandmother's from it. And so it's like, if people ask me, I'm like, race, it doesn't even like come to mind because I'm like, well, like, okay, I'm white, but that doesn't like the moment that I say white, I'm just erasing like half of my ancestry. And it's like, yeah. So I think that the thing is that like race is a really bad metric for how people fit into the world, is how I would say.
And this reminds me too, I think there's been a big, and I think it's a good thing, of the analyzing or discovering your ancestry and your family tree. And one thing I thought about is all our family trees kind of start with us and then spread out in this way. But what truly happens eventually is we all go back to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like sometimes that spread can make us not connect, like it feels like it funnels to us. But the truth is, we all go back to Africa. But I'm not claiming to be black at all, but I think that's
Yeah.
another way to think about race,
Mm-hmm.
where eventually it doesn't work and it
Yeah.
disappears.
Just
So, so
it's like we did this thing in my English class where we were studying the anthropology of the development of English language, starting with like Proto-Indo-European languages and a bunch of like root languages. But we were talking about like migration patterns, and she like put up on the board like, oh yeah, this is like the approximate biological reconstruction of what these people would have looked like. And you look at them and you're like, that's just like low-key a standard person. Except that this is like before we even developed like vocal tracts the same way that we have them now. And you're like, yeah, that like looks kind of like my cousin. And then this got really weird. She traced us back to like the Turkic steppes, right? And so it's like Turkey and bits of Greece and like some of those Baltic regions. And there was somebody up there, and I'm like, that's literally my cousin. Like, I'm not even like, haha, that looks like my cousin. Like, that literally like is my cousin. Like, I put up a picture of her, and my teacher put it up, and it was like fully her. And then we were like talking about it, and she's like, yeah, but these were the people that were everywhere from Mongolia to like northern Africa to Greece. And I'm like, because that all makes sense, right? And now we have like my yaya is like, I don't trust Turkish people. And then it's like, well, we all look the exact same if you go back far enough. And I feel like you were saying, that's where like race dissolves. And it's all like, it's weird because we all have like the exact same ancestors if you go back far enough. Like
yeah,
the mitochondrial DNA that we have literally all goes back to one woman. Everyone has a mitochondria that descends from one person, and that's like literally how you're powered. So if we get into like the semantics of like what kind of melanin do you have? Is it eumelanin or pheomelanin? And what part? Like it just why? Like it just feels very antiquated. It's not really
yeah.
catching up with the science. But
Okay, you're on it. All the points. Yeah, amen. I'm with it. To sort of wrap up,
mhm.
um, I care so much about children. Um, do you have any advice for younger mixed people that may um, struggle with or are starting to navigate their different identities?
um, learn as much about your different cultures as you can young, because I think that once you get a bit older, everyone sort of relaxes into a version of their culture they find comfortable. But if you don't find the version that you find comfortable, you're kind of always going to be a little bit unmoored. Also, cultural dress is, I think, something that tends to be more difficult for people who are like white passing or people who are more like feel like they look a little bit less, whatever their background is. Um, don't be afraid to wear cultural clothing. Like it's
Mhm.
cultural clothing, not racial clothing. Like that's not how like you can like feel comfortable wearing the garb that is your culture and don't feel weird about it because it's like I think that that's something that I've been like recently getting back into and it's like wow this is correct in a way like you will feel like it clicks but it's interesting because it's like especially in a time where everyone's talking about like cultural appropriation like you're not appropriating your own culture just because you look different than the other people within your culture
Uh,
and
yep.
it's like, yeah, and I think that that's something that I think it took me a really long time to get. Like when I wear like a quipao, I always feel a little bit like off because I'm like, well, I know I look like really white, but like this is like what I've been like. I have my little childhood photos with my grandmother, where we're both wearing like she has like a matching like silk embroidered jacket to my quipao, and it's like this is cultural garb in a way that I feel like is something I'm still trying to reclaim. The Greek
Yeah.
side's obviously easier because I look more Greek, and so I feel like there's less of a barrier. But I've been trying to branch into the Chinese side, and it's like it's difficult if you don't, I think, do it young. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
that's my advice.
I absolutely agree. Look into it more, study a little bit. One thing I learned recently was yes, a lot of Koreans have the last name Kim, but when you dive deeper into that, you find that, like for my grandpa,
Hmm.
his line of Kims goes to a specific part of Korea,
Hmm.
and that Kim line has a name, and I haven't memorized it yet. But so it's not just this one thing.
No.
Uh, it gets specific, and then it makes me very interested in going further. And oh, I've loved this conversation. Is there any last things, any questions, last comments? You covered more than I
Sorry, I talk a
expected.
lot.
I love it.
I feel like this is a conversation that I have been like walking around for a long time, if that makes sense. Like I've been in a lot of situations where I've thought to myself, like, this is something about being mixed race, but then I haven't really like considered it all that much more. And I feel like I'm glad we had this conversation because I think that it was really constructive. Also,
Yeah.
really fun to hear about like your experience of it and how you've like traced lineage. I feel like that's something I've done on my Greek side, but not on my Chinese side yet. So yeah, this was a really good conversation. Thanks for having me.
Yay. Oh, Ella, thank you so much. Good luck starting UC Berkeley soon. Congratulations, by the way.
You.
And I think that's all I want to say. Thank you to all our ancestors. Um, there
Yeah,
have been times where it's been a struggle, and hard and hurt,
and they pull through.
but I'm so grateful for our experiences as mixed people. So awesome. I
All
hope to
right,
see you
awesome.
soon.
Yeah, I hope to see you soon as well. I think
All
we're
right.
actually going to see Erica soon. But anyway,
Totally. Totally. Okay. Bye,
bye bye.
Ella.
How do I?